The trainers that are still here, will you please stand up and take your bow right now so that we can applaud you and say thank you for coming.
Hey!
Couldn't do it without Simon and all of the people who travel, Karen and Prague and others who travel here to be with all of you and to be with all of us. Also, you know, as they say, when you start naming, you know it's a problem, but I don't have to do it anyway. If you're here and you know, please stand up or wave your hand. U.S. Helsinki Commission, thank you very much, Yusuf. We have Impact, brought a big team. David Johns, where are you? People here who brought the Danish Ethnic Youth Council, where are you? Please stand up and accept your bow. Kistra from the German Marshall Fund, I know you're still here, absolutely. We're so glad that Anna Mee was here from the Copenhagen Mayor for Employment Integration. Let's give her a hand. And to really get this event started, you know, getting a young, new, elected Danish Parliament member, Liv Andersen, we definitely need to give her a round of applause. And you know, I'm from the United States, so I would be remiss if I did not thank all of my United States colleagues who had the vision in our Bureau of European and Eurasia Affairs, who really worked with our Special Representative, Farah Punda, to make sure that this would be an all-inclusive activity, one of which, as we review your comments, definitely, I think, has far surpassed any of our expectations. And so on behalf of those individuals and our ambassador, I'd like for you to make sure you give a good round of applause to our embassy team. Where are you, embassy team? I think that's right. We got Rick back there, we got Travis, we got Patricia, Teresa, Aggie, and Philip. So we want to thank them a lot. And then, you know, we all flew over here, Zach and Laura, who has been our big leader, and Gabrielle. So I hope if I left anybody out from the thank yous, okay, you all can just give me a little list like you do, and I will make sure we come back to give them one.
Yourself?
Thank you so much. When I was asked, I will tell you on behalf of the ambassador and on behalf of the United States government, I will tell you that it has really been a joy and a delight to be here. So what they've asked me to do is to kind of give, I guess, a little wrap-up of what I just heard as we began to go back and synthesize this for our Bureau teams about where we see, and it is not about us, it is where you see this initiative and this network and this effort going. So if I could just put a little spin on some of the things that was brought up. When you talk about effective networks and you're saying let's make it successful, I think that has already occurred in this room by your mere presence. And when you say how do we make it successful, when you say communications, we all know the social media tools. So many of you have volunteered to put those in place or have begun to put them in place right here. Many of you are already Facebooking, and many of you already are tweeting about this meeting, and many of you have begun or have done your blogs. So we want to make sure that that continues to happen and with this email network that we will also have, and I know that we're going to be putting together with all of your assistance, that's going to make sure that the people in this room stay connected. I liked it when one of the groups, I think it was Group 1, talked about funding and saying you have to be well funded. I say you have to be creative in the funding. That why should we sit back and wait for anyone to give us the funding when in fact, not only if you get the opportunity to bring yourself or someone else or recommend someone else the next time, can you help them get funding to come to an activity like this that is going to then benefit everyone when they return back home to their country, as well as benefiting the individuals in this room. And then when you talk about members, thought that was very important because the membership is in this room is just the beginning. And in this beginning, when I stood up at the beginning on Sunday and said I can look around the room and just see how dynamic this is, and to see all of the leaders that are currently here, to see the activists that are here, knowing full well that I feel comfortable in that our country's future is very secure. In the conversation that was also had about the foundation, about the vision and the goals, many of you have said it eloquently. We don't need to repeat that. But leveraging the opportunities for one another, I think, has to be underscored, because you in this room will be able to not only leverage for yourself, but you'll be able to leverage for your colleagues, not just young colleagues or diverse colleagues or women colleagues, but for all of the colleagues of which you either are a member of a particular body or for the work that you all are doing. The conversation keeps coming up about language and how important it is. And I will tell you that we make a mistake all the time if we do not understand the language of one another, because everyone has a different definition of something. So I make it a practice that when I go into a particular country, and I've been fortunate for the U.S. State Department to travel around the world, I try to make sure not only that I understand first the pleasantries. What are the pleasantries of that country? What's the culture of the country? What's the do's and don'ts when you're entering a country and you're beginning to talk to your colleagues or to talk to the citizens overall? Each and every one of you have brought to mind that this really has been an excellent opportunity for free mentoring and free coaching. I say you can mentor and coach each other. I do it in my career every single day. If I have an issue, if I have a problem, if I have a concern, it's not just about sharing the successes. We all can do that. But you really do want someone to listen and to hear and to provide you with critical feedback, even when you get feedback that you might not necessarily like. But in doing that, as elected officials and people who are activists or appointed officials, I think is really critical, and it can keep you on the successful course. The conversation kept coming up about sharing of best practices. Absolutely, could not be more important, and that's what's taking place here in this room. And then one of my American colleagues said, let's keep it simple, and in the U.S. we call it KISS. It's called Keep It Simple, Stupid. And we do that because we do need to keep these types of things simple. We do not need to make it like it's something so complicated that in your daily world to network with somebody, it's just too hard. Well, how can it be hard when people are, sending us a tweet, putting you up on Facebook, and emailing you every nanosecond? So in doing that, that just allows us to keep it simple. When someone said, I don't want to interfere with the U.S. job. No, this is not the U.S. job. It is all of our job. That's why it's U.S. and European leaders. Because the challenge is for us in this room to keep the network going. It is the challenge for you in this room to continue to not only build the network for the people that are sitting here and have the privilege and the honor to be here, but it's to go back to your own communities and say, you know what? I want to share that with my colleagues. I want to share the success stories that I heard from the individuals in this room. And so the concept that we have, we call it train the trainer. And that's really, if you think about who the people are in this room, Simon, the next time he come, and Karen and Prague, and all of you who have stepped up and been trainers, we will learn such a valuable lesson when we have individuals that come here from Ireland and tell us, like she did this morning, about giving us the information, giving us the data, telling us that the fact that you can go home and do the exact same thing. And someone brought up, I think it was in group 2, that said, it is really also about bilateral, country to country. It can be trilateral. We know that's 3. It can be regional, more than one, I guess. But more importantly, the overall terminology is multilateral. That's what you really have in here, even though you have so many countries that are represented here. That's what this network has been started, and that's what this network can become. I cannot emphasize enough the whole issue about the document library. I think when Group 3 brought that up, she was absolutely correct in the sense that why reinvent the wheel? When people have studied this, if you want to know the statistics about women in Ireland, we know who to call. If we want to know how to get elected and how to move from one position to the next, I think the trainers have been talking about that. But all of you who are stepping up from one role to the next also have that. But nothing beats data, nothing beats surveys, and the documentation that brings, because we all have to validate each and every time any of us do anything, especially if we leave the country. If you leave your constituency, you leave your community, you're not on the job where you were elected or appointed to serve in. So to be able to always have that kind of data and information is going to be critical. Someone said, I think in Group 4, that we have same interests, although there are differences. But the key word that the young person leader brought up was about fighting for something. Just like you fought for your position, just like Stanley knocked on 90,000 doors, you have to fight for your positions, and you have to fight for what is right. Because you're not fighting because you're a minority. You're not fighting because you're a man. You're not fighting because you're a woman. You're not fighting because you're a Muslim or whatever inclusive measure that you want to put in that bucket. You're fighting for your community. You're fighting for the citizen that voted for you, or that you serve in an appointed capacity, or that you advocate for in your advocacy organizations. And so when they talked about coming together on a regular basis, we all know the term. It's called meetup. You're meeting up in any form or fashion. So if you're traveling and you know that you're going to be in a particular country or a community, you need to meet up to continue to get that source of inspiration and to get that guidance and that coaching and mentoring that each one of you can do for each other. You can do it personally, and of course you can use technology to do that, because each of you, as Group 4 pointed out, you have more knowledge about your community, more knowledge about your country than anybody else in this room that is going to come and visit. So you can impart that knowledge on others as they come, because, you know, the old adage of what we all talk about, mutual understanding and respect and trust, I will tell you, it really does start there. And in this room, where we started out with everybody in their little corner, you know, this group was over here, all the Americans were over there, and, you know, and everybody's kind of looking at each other. Look at this room now. And everyone here is sitting next to someone, and I know that these breakout sessions really continue to help that. But in the social time, as well as in the time of the structured dialogue, what you're gaining, and what all of us have gained from you, is that mutual respect, is that mutual understanding, is that mutual benefit. And I keep using the word mutual. It is not a one-way street. It is about all of us being in that room. And then Group 5 pointed out, said, we're all the best. All the groups are the best. And he is absolutely right. Now, of course, you know, Group 1, they came up and said they were the best. Group 2 said, oh, no, we're the best. Group 3, 4, and 5. But by the time we got to 5, the commonality of conversation, we should all take pride in knowing that all of you in this room, not only did you hear what Simon and others were saying, you're now putting it into practice, because so much came out. And I think Group 5 said sharing, networking, and continuing the platform. And so finding that within yourselves, that each and every one of you are the individuals that can keep this conversation going. So now where are we moving toward? We're really saying, and it came out beautifully, we're not just here to talk about being minorities and being inclusive, or talk about gender issues, or being a woman, or whatever. This is really about the fact that you serve the majority. It is not about the fact that you're young, that you have to deal, because now it's not just about young. I said to someone, yeah, they're young, but I got a group that's younger. I was in Atlanta, Georgia with a group that's 21, 18. I don't think, is anybody in here 18? Before I even say anybody, is anybody in here 18? So see, there's another group that's even younger that will totally 100% benefit from what you all have been discussing in this conversation. Women. We've spent a lot of time with the women. We look around this room and we're just so excited about the women that are sitting at this table and what is going to take place